From The Times and The Sunday Times, this is The Story. I'm Luke Jones. The money keeps rolling in.
Meta just spent $14.3 billion to hire just one person. And he's just 28 years old.
And $2 billion is pocket change for them.
No one wants to be the first to pull back because cutting comp doesn't just risk losing talent, it risks signaling that you're losing momentum.
A new milestone in the world of artificial intelligence.
Nvidia just became the first company to hit $4 trillion in market cap.
She created a company, got a $12 billion valuation, and they don't even have a product yet.
It's almost like investors are saying 100 million isn't enough, Deirdre, make it two.
Right, make it billions, it doesn't matter. Just spend as much as you can.
AI companies are spending and raising more cash than ever, with billions going on the best developers and ideas and company valuations spiraling out of control. But is this justified? Will the potential match up to the reality? And what's the impact on the rest of us if all of this comes crashing down? The story today: is there an AI bubble? And what happens when it bursts? Let's get cracking. Can you introduce yourself, Danny?
I am Danny Fortson, the West Coast correspondent for the Sunday Times.
We are in an AI moment, aren't we? Are you sometimes surprised the amount at which, the bandwidth that we give over to chatter about AI?
Oh, we are definitely in an AI moment. It's sucking up all the oxygen in the room. But this is kind of what happens out here. When a new idea emerges, everybody gets very excited, and then the kind of this big machine grinds into motion, and you start just throwing huge amounts of money at it, and then we'll see where it all goes.
And you have this thought or question as to whether this might be a bubble. Before we get into that, and also bubbles you've known and loved in the past, how would you define a bubble in the abstract?
For the context of this conversation, it's just about something where the money, the expectations, the values of these prospective, thousands and thousands of companies just completely run away from the reality on the ground. And at some, it's kind of that law of gravity. What goes up must come back down. I will say that I think we are absolutely in a bubble. Things are crazy right now. However, that does not mean that AI is not going to change everything sooner or later, but I think both of those things can be true.
And I didn't realize you've previous with bubbles.
Yes. I'm dating myself here, but I grew up in the Bay Area in San Jose. And after uni, I graduated in 99, 2000, right in the middle of the dotcom boom.
The dotcom boom exactly is what?
The dotcom boom is basically the arrival of the internet.
Imagine a world where every word ever written, every picture ever painted, and every film ever shot could be viewed instantly in your home via an information superhighway.
And very similarly, everybody got very, very, very excited about this new thing, the information superhighway. We were going to put everything on this World Wide Web.
It sounds pretty grand, but it all comes down to computers communicating. And in fact, that's already happening on something called the internet, that anyone in the world with a computer and a modem to connect it to a telephone line can subscribe to.
And it was this huge, just, again, very similar, tons of money flowing into tons of crazy ideas. All these new companies, little companies like Google starting in a residence hall. Amazon started by one guy on a kind of a folding table up in Seattle. And of course, the stock market went crazy as people got very excited about the possibilities of this new world where everything was going to shift from the real world to online.
And what were you doing in all of this?
I was trying to be one of those millionaires. I had graduated. My cunning plan was to move to San Francisco. I had a liberal arts degree, not technical at all, but I was like, I'll just get a .com job, any .com, get my own kind of stock options and become a millionaire once my company also goes public. I lasted 4 months hired and fired. The bubble started to burst right after I was hired. And the company quickly realized, oh, we're losing tons of money and no one is ever going to give us money again. Our venture capital backers have closed their wallets. And eventually that company went bankrupt. But it was a real lesson for me in just the kind of the collective mania, how those take hold, and how when you're in the middle of it, you think, well, this makes sense. You have lots of smart people who know way more than me who are saying, no, profits don't really matter right now. You're like, okay, I guess I agree. And then, of course, they do.
What was the most sort of egregious bubble popping in that dot-com boom?
I mean, there were a lot. The quintessential dot-com boom bust story was probably pets.com. And pets.com was, as you might expect, it was an online pet store. And this was very much of the moment where it was like, well, we have all of these bricks and mortar stores. Well, the big idea is just take those stores and put them online. And so pets.com, they raised a ton of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, very famously paid for a Super Bowl ad.
Today, we're coming to you from one crazy dog park. Now that you can get whatever you want at pets.com, it's like Mardi Gras.
And this was like kind of a moment in the culture because their mascot was this kind of goofy sock puppet dog.
I'm a professional happy puppet thing, and it's my job to make animals happy.
It said something very short, and then at the end of it said, oh, well, we just blew $1 million. And that was the story. It was like, ha, 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 isn't this funny? We spent $1 million on this ad. But here we are, pets.com announcing themselves to the world. They float on in New York. Big, exciting stock market float IPO. 8 months later, they went bankrupt.
Other economic news tonight, there is a new victim of the falling fortunes of the new economy. Pets.com is closing down.
The demise of Pets.com is one of the first needles to punch a hole in the internet bubble.
Pets.com will sell off the majority of its assets and lay off 255 of its 320 employees.
The dog's dead.
The dog is dead. People started to realize, oh my goodness, we put billions and billions and billions of dollars into these companies. And then you start to really look at the numbers and you realize most of them are bad ideas. And that's when you saw the bubble burst. 90+% of these companies just disappeared. And you had this huge amount of value destruction and a real kind of shockwave through the economy. So during the dot-com boom, call it 95, when Netscape, the first web browser, really kind of took the world by storm, to 2000, the stock market went up by something like 80%. And then between 2000 and 2002, the NASDAQ lost effectively all of those gains, nearly 80%.
What are the parallels that you would draw between what happened there and what might be happening now with this great enthusiasm for AI?
I would say there is a similar frenzy. If you listen to people like Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet, other people in the industry, there is a general acceptance that this is an invention akin to harnessing fire, inventing electricity.
AI is going to be bigger than the internet. There are going to be companies, products, categories created, which we aren't aware of today. So I think the future looks exciting.
Something that is going to completely change the way we all live, work, do business, etc. So, of course, the money that is being pumped into this industry right now is insane.
And let's go through some of what those symptoms are. And I guess the sort of most obvious one at the moment is like ludicrously high salaries. Poaching people who are AI geniuses and paying them, well, you know better than me, but aren't there some who have packages north of $1 billion?
Yeah, so this is really being driven by Mark Zuckerberg at Meta.
The two most important things that I look for are, number one is just raw intelligence. And the second is just alignment with what we're trying to do.
If you are a very good software developer specialized in AI, you're at the top of your game. This is literally the best time to be alive in the history of humanity.
So, I mean, People can be really smart or have skills that are directly applicable, but if they don't really believe in it, then they're not going to really work hard.
Because maybe 5 years ago, you were off kind of in the wilderness. People were like, AI, that's kind of an interesting thing, but kind of who cares? Today, Meta in particular, they have this huge ads business. They're one of the largest companies in the world. Mark Zuckerberg is prone to kind of taking big swings. We all remember his kind of obsession with the metaverse and other things.
Imagine you put on your glasses or headset and you're instantly in your home space. It has parts of your physical home recreated virtually. It has things that are only possible virtually. And it has an incredibly inspiring view of whatever you find most beautiful.
His conviction is that he wants to create personal superintelligence. I don't really understand what that means. Nobody really does. So that everybody has a personal superintelligence kind of with them at all times. And he is determined to be at the forefront of that race, but he didn't have the talent in-house he needed. So he has gone out, started sending out personal emails to, a roster of the top people throughout the industry at different companies, like Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, and being like, hey, how about $100 million over 4 years? How about $200 million over 4 years?
They started making these like giant offers to, a lot of people on our team, like $100 million signing bonuses, more than that comp per year.
There has been rumors of a $1 billion offer to a single coder.
And it is crazy. I'm really happy that at least so far, none of our best people have decided to take them up on that. I think that people sort of look at the two paths and say, all right, OpenAI's got a really good shot, a much better shot at actually delivering on superintelligence, and also may eventually be the more valuable company.
When you think about that in terms of like the Premier League, top NBA stars, it is commensurate, and in many cases, more than any of those people are getting paid. And the question is, why? And there's a really interesting statement the other day from Jensen Huang, who's the founder of Nvidia, which is like maker of the chips that are the brains for all of these systems. And he said, basically, if you have 100, 150 of the right people, the right coders, that is what you need to create the next OpenAI, which of course is the market leader, the creator of ChatGPT. And he's saying, so like, this small handful of people who really know how to build these systems are like gold dust.
And if we continue to follow the money, one of the other interesting symptoms of all of this is not just the amount people are hoping to pay for elite staff, but also the amount investors are putting into companies which don't necessarily have a clear route to profitability, and how much some of these companies are being valued as well.
In that case, there's a couple companies that were started by a couple of the co-founders of OpenAI who have since left. One, Ilya Sutskever, who's seen as one of the leaders and pioneers of this whole moment that we're in. He created a company called SSI, Safe Superintelligence. They're reportedly valued at $30 billion. They're less than a year old and have no product that anyone has seen.
And normally we'd value a company by, well, you've made this thing.
Yeah.
You've made this much profit. If we multiply that over a number of years, we'll be willing to pay this much for that entire company.
And similarly, Mira Murati, she was another OpenAI founder. She's started her company, Thinking Machines Labs, less than 6 months ago. And that's supposedly worth $12 billion. Again, no product, but back to that broader point of you have under your roof some very smart people. And that apparently is enough for many investors to be like, you know what? They're going to figure it out. They're going to create something of such immense value that we're willing to, say that this company that is months old with no product is worth tens of billions of dollars. It's quite extraordinary.
And where does that faith come from? These are clever people. They have lots of money. They got it somehow. How do they have such seemingly blind faith in this?
You can start to look at the big public companies who are already making money from AI. Microsoft really freaked a lot of people out recently. Their CEO put out a letter that said they're getting rid of 15,000 people this year at the time of record profits. And those two are linked. because he's saying, well, all of like the integration of these AI tools, especially around software development, can really dramatically increase the productivity of actual human coders. Therefore, you need less of them. You need less humans.
But they are growing. They are turning a profit. They have a track record of doing that.
Yeah.
There are lots of companies I've discussed who haven't demonstrated that yet. So where does the faith in those come, and how bubbly do you think that bubble is?
Very bubbly, very bubbly. But that's the nature of this crazy Silicon Valley machine out here, is that if you're a venture capitalist, you know that if you're making 10 bets right now, 9 really won't work out. But you are relying on what they call the power law out here of like, all you need is 1. And that pays for all of the failures and then some. Like, you're in the casino, you have to place bets. Because if you don't place bets, you're not going to win.
What does this mean for all of us? Those of us who are not even dabbling with investment on a small scale.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple things. Like, there's a question around, what does the bubble mean for us? When it pops, what does that mean? And then there's also the question of, what does AI mean for us? So the bubble popping, the issue there is that if you look at the S&P 500, like the top 500 US companies that so many people's pensions are invested in, what they call the Magnificent Seven, which are the top 7 tech companies in America, that's Apple, Meta, Alphabet, Amazon, Microsoft, Tesla, Nvidia, make up about 1/3 of it, which is a level of concentration that we've really never seen before. Those 7 companies basically make the market go up and make the market go down. If and when they kind of come back to earth, because we all have kind of a collective realization that a lot of this stuff, that it won't deliver as quickly as they expected, that can have a huge effect on the stock market broadly, which you and I would feel in our pensions and retirement accounts, et cetera. And on that aspect, these companies, the top 10 tech companies between now and 2028 are expected to spend $1 trillion with a T on data centers, which are really like the kind of the infrastructure to house the brains of these AI systems.
That horse through electricity and water.
Exactly. You have these companies like revivifying defunct nuclear stations, taking over hydroelectric dams. I mean, it is really extraordinary what is happening. That level of investment is like building the railroads. It is a level of an infrastructure investment that hasn't really been seen since the dotcom boom, when companies, laid 80 million miles of fiber optics cables all over the US to bring the world onto the internet. The part of that story is that most of the companies who dug those, trenches to lay that cable went bankrupt because the internet just took longer. So that is kind of where we are. We're just in this moment of kind of a little bit of collective madness, and there is real value there. And the revolution is kind of, we're in the middle of it, but how long it takes to arrive and who gets kind of chewed up in that process, that's what we're going to see play out.
And do you think that the revolution is also something of a bubble that will pop? Like, our hopes, expectations, and dreams for AI need to come down to earth a little bit. I mean, great, it can draft complicated documents. I had it show me what paint colors might suit my sitting room. Lovely. Is it really going to change the world as much as we think, though?
There's a guy called Dario Amodei. He runs Anthropic, who's maker of the Claude chatbot. He wrote an essay called Machines of Loving Grace, 10,000 words. It's a tome. And in it, he basically pitches it as, what if everything goes right? And in there are some pretty wild predictions. He says, like, look, if you think about AI as a country of geniuses in a data center, what are you going to use those geniuses to do? If you have all of a sudden a team of Nobel Prize winners to throw at a problem, And those Nobel Prize winners happen to be just actually housed in server racks as opposed to, carbon-based life forms. They never stop working, never get tired. They never take a vacation. What does that mean? We could compress a century of progress in terms of biology, human health, into a decade. We could cure all disease. So we're all living to our hundreds, playing tennis at 120. These are some of the kind of outlandish ideas that very smart people are saying, well, maybe. And then you have other things like, will our progeny need to ever drive a car? Will that be a skill that you even require? I live out here in the Bay Area. You go to San Francisco, there are Waymos, these driverless cars everywhere, and they're very good. That future is happening now. So these are some of the more kind of out there predictions.
So do you kind of forgive us all then for getting caught up and inflating this bubble with all these expectations, as we have done in the past, even though we've got the examples of history? It is very easy to get carried away.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a skeptical journalist, and I had my plan as a 24-year-old to be, retired by 30 with my dotcom riches. Didn't work out. So I am a bit kind of default skeptical about some of these things. But as anybody who's used these systems, they are also quite impressive. If I can paint a picture of me on my 5th career doing astrophysics with the help of my AI assistant, my AI scientist at my side, and then call up my autonomous car to take me to my tennis game with my 120-year-old friend who I've now known for, 110 years. It is very exciting, right? The only thing I would say about Silicon Valley is that it's a company building machine. It's also a myth machine. It's very good at marketing the brave new world. Things are inevitably more complicated and move slower.
And just finally, this is quite crystal ball stuff, but when will we know this bubble bursting, this great consolidation is upon us?
There's usually like a trigger, an event, a big company failing, or something going very wrong. That's the thing that kind of wakes people up. But how and where that will happen is just impossible to predict. It reminds me of a quote during the financial crisis of 2008. It was clear that things were not sustainable. Wall Street was at record highs, but they were just it was all built on this kind of this house of cards of very bad loans all over the world. And the CEO of Citigroup, he said, look, the music's playing, so I'm still dancing. And I feel like we're in the middle of the song right now. When that song ends, or when the record scratches and everybody's kind of stops and looks at each other like, oh, that's really hard to predict. But again, the internet did change the world for good and ill. AI is going to change the world for good and ill. It's a question of pace and the kind of creative destruction that happens along the way. And that's what makes this such a fascinating and a little bit terrifying story.
That was Danny Fortson, US West Coast correspondent for the Sunday Times. That is it from us today. Today's producer was Olivia Case. The executive producer was Edward Drummond. Sound design was by Tom Birchall and theme composition by Mao Lassetto. I'm Luke Jones. See you soon.